Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Toronto, Canada. Although, believe it or not, we did have snow yesterday. Apparently, there was some sort of polar vortex situation going on. Because this is a fairly long video, it is over an hour long, and to be truthful, that is about how long it will take you to make a mask from start to finish. So, truly, the length of the video is not unreasonable. I wanted to show you what the masks look like when they're completed, in case this is not what you're looking for. This is a lady's medium. I've chosen to use different fabrics on the two sides. This is what a men's large looks like. I've made it in plain black because the brawny Scottish lad doesn't like anything too fussy. And I wanted to talk a bit about how many masks you can get out of a piece of fabric. So if you have a piece of fabric that is 45 inches wide by 2 yards long, you can get 9 large masks, including the ties, out of that piece of fabric. I also wanted to talk about something I say in the next segment, and I say something like COVID-19 is not a pretty look. I'm strictly talking about me, and no, I do not have COVID-19. I'm just simply stating that because I'm working from home and stuck at home for the most part, I've not been grooming myself like I usually do. I'm clean, but I'm not bothering with hair and makeup. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this video, and let me know your thoughts. The links will be down below, and I'm very new to YouTube, so clearly I don't have any affiliation with Amazon or any other distribution group. But if you're interested to know where to buy needles, thread, the tools, then just check down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So this is a total experiment. I've had many requests on how I make my masks, so I thought I would make a mask on camera. Please understand that this is a crappy old camera. It's probably about 12 years old, and I've never really recorded anything on the video function before. And B, sewing's my wheelhouse, videos are not. Anyway, for the most part, except for my hands, I'm going to try to stay off camera because COVID-19 look is not that pretty. Anyway, this fabric is 100% cotton. It's a medium weight fabric, and this is what you want for making masks. I'd like to put a disclaimer that these are not medically certified, that, I cannot guarantee that this is going to help you from to not get the virus or to not pass it on to other people should you have it. But you know what? Everybody's wearing them, and some stores are starting to insist that you wear them. So this is a good place to start. I'd also like to say that my pattern is from Jennifer Maker, and when I post this to Facebook, I'll put a link to the pattern, or you can message me. I have it in PDF. She's made it free for everybody, so I can either send you the PDF or the link to download it yourself. As I said, this is a medium weight, 100% cotton. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the fabric to make the straps. So I'm going to do a bit of cutting just to show you how it's done, and then I'm going to turn the camera off because nobody wants to watch me cut. Now, because I quilt and because sewing is my thing, I have a lot of equipment that maybe the average person doesn't have. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip. So I've got the edge of my fabric lined up with the 2-inch mark here. I know it says 6.5, but trust me, I quilt all the time, so I know that that's a good 2-inch mark. I'm just adjusting that over a bit. You have to kind of trust that this edge of your fabric is fairly straight. If it's not a big deal because this is going to get all tucked in and sewn. This is called a Quilter's Handy Lock. Again, if you're interested in getting one, I can put you in touch with the lady who makes them. Actually, her husband makes them. I bought this a year ago, and I can't say enough good things about it. Now, because I quilt, I do a lot of Okay, so we've got our two strips cut. One's here and one's over on the other table. I'm going to show you two ways to iron these, because if you don't have one of these, which by the way is called a bias tape maker, and you can certainly get that on Amazon. I don't know, they might be sold out. This is absolutely the easiest way, but I'll show you a second way in case you don't have one of these. If you're using the bias tape maker, cut a diagonal piece off the end, one end of the strip, and you just simply, watch, it won't work, you feed it through using this little device that they supply. I think it's called an owl, an AWL. Anyway, okay, that's gonna work good. So as you can see, it folds it for you, so you just simply, or maybe not so simply, run your iron. Now this does not have to be perfect. Obviously you want it to be as even as possible, but it's not, you know, it's not going to affect the integrity of your mask. This little iron that I'm using, it's called Oliso, O-L-I-S-O. I have two of them. I have a big blue one, and I have this little one. And I bought this thinking, I'll never use it, but I liked it because it was pink, and now I use it more than the big one. This one I like because there's less chance of burning myself. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera off for now because I've got quite a bit to do and nobody wants to watch me do this. And then I will show you the hard way to do this, and then I'll show you the second step. Actually, I can do this. I can do the second step on this piece. You just, once you've got this ironed, you just simply fold it and iron the top down. So that's going to be your strap once you stitch along the edge. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because your sewing machine will catch it about here and it'll be nice. And this bit gets cut off flat. Alright, so I'm going to show you the hard way to iron. Maybe, actually, I'll do it now on the other side. So if you don't have that little device, all I do, before I got this, when I wanted to do this type of thing, is I fold it in two. I'm just going to do the end part. I fold this in. Good morning. I realized when I was reviewing the footage for when I was folding and ironing the strips for the ties for the masks, that if you're doing the method without the bias tape maker, then that part got cut off. So to do that, I'm just going to quickly review, and then hopefully I'll be able to insert this. And if you can see my hair in the screen, I do apologize. I just got out of the shower and it's sopping wet. So all you do is fold and iron along this edge. Okay, I am not going to do the entire 72-inch piece. I'm just going to do this much. Okay. Then you would simply fold it in to the middle and iron again. Okay, same thing. I love the way my iron kind of does an ice skating pirouette when I put it down on this felt wool mat. Okay, so we're folding the other edge in and ironing it down. So obviously you would do the entire length, but oops. I don't know, iron, can you do a triple axel? Let's see. Nope. Okay, and then fold it once more and iron along the top. I just kind of use my finger in here to guide the edges to meet. And then when you're ready to sew, you sew along this edge as close as you can get where you catch all the layers. So that's how you do it without the bias tape maker. Alright, so here we are. It's the end of the day. I recorded the other part of this video earlier today, but I'm ready to sew down the ties for the masks we are making. So I just want to show you, this is my baby. This is the Bernina 770 Quilters edition. I bought this machine in January. I outgrew my Janome, which is, sorry about this, sitting on the floor out over here. I still do use the Janome, but I just outgrew it for what I wanted to do. So I bought this Bernina in January, and I have to say it was worth every penny. So I'm trying to set up this camera so that it actually works. If my ex-brother-in-law, Grant, is watching this, he's probably cringing because my video skills are so poor. But Grant, if you're watching this, I do apologize, but this is how it is. I know how to sew. Actually, you know how to sew too, but mostly you know how to make videos. So we're going to sew down these pieces. Now, as I said, this Bernina has a lot of bells and whistles. Your machine may not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the needle so that it's right at the right position. If your machine doesn't have this capability, oopsie, just move, oh, good Lord, just move your presser, not your presser foot, your fabric to the correct position. So again, this machine has all the bells and whistles. It also has a knee lift. So all I'm going to do is sew as close to the edge to catch both layers as I can. So I'll sew a few stitches, and then I'll probably turn the camera off, because again, watching somebody do this is probably like watching paint dry. This machine automatically does back stitching at the beginning, so I don't need to worry about that, and it's also kind of loud. And at the beginning of the stitch line, it's going to do what's called the Bernina burp, which means it's going to get very loud, and then it'll calm down. So let's begin. So I'm just going to lift this up with my knee lift. Happy Saturday morning, everybody. Sorry about my voice. This is the first time I've spoken today. Anyway, I realized when I was reviewing what I filmed yesterday that I had this camera mistakenly set up to only film for 3 minutes, and then it stopped. So quite a bit of what I said yesterday actually got cut off. So we're going to review that right now. So I was talking about cutting things into 2-inch strips. If you don't have this type of equipment, i.e. the Quilters slide lock and the special ruler with the measurements on it, you can simply use a pen or pencil and a regular ruler to mark 2-inch strips, and then cut it with scissors. Okay? I wanted to talk a bit about the Quilters slide lock, which I think I mentioned you can order from the US. I don't know if they're still making them. This was kind of a husband and wife mom and pop shop. But this Quilters slide lock, if you're seriously getting into quilting or sewing, it's an amazing tool. These rulers, I mean, I have a whole bunch of them, different sizes, different widths, different lengths. This one I particularly like because it has little grippy things on the bottom, which help with keeping your fabric straight and your lines straight. With respect to rotary cutters, okay, I had more, and I bet if I looked in my daughter's room, I would find the ones that are missing. This turquoise and pink one on the left, I bought it because it was turquoise and pink. I kind of don't recommend. The yellow one, I believe, is an Olfa. Yes, it is. It's okay. It's okay. It's got your standard safety lock, so then you can't open or close it. I find it a bit cumbersome. It's just the design doesn't fit my hand properly. Now, you wouldn't think, looking at these two, the yellow one to the black one, that it would make that much difference. This one I found at the Creative Festival last fall, when we could still go to festivals. And I love it. This is my favorite tool for cutting. It's just really, it's sharp, it's easy to operate, and I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. Also, I've cut a lot, and I've been using the same blade since September. No issues whatsoever. I'm still getting clean, crisp cuts. With respect to scissors, I mean, if you're just making these masks and you're not planning on getting into sewing, not a hill to die on. But my favorite scissors are these soft cut ones. I can't even remember where I got them, but they're nice. And these ones don't even have a brand name on them, but they're also very nice. I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is that sometimes you find amazing deals in places you don't expect to find them. I got these pinking shears, which are made in Japan, and that's what you want if you're going to buy good scissors. Typically they are made in Japan. I like scissors that are made in Japan because they tend to be a little bit smaller, and easier for me to hold because my hands are a little on the small side. These pinking shears were new in the box, although they're probably from the 1970s. They were still new in the box with the price tag and the instruction booklet, although if you need an instruction booklet to operate scissors, I don't know. Anyway, I think they were $6, and I got them at an antique store in Hamilton. So that's a bit about equipment. If possible, you want to have good pins. These pins, you know, they're not your dollar store pins, and they're worth the extra money if you're planning on getting into sewing. These are a lifesaver. The clips, I got them on Amazon. I have them. Oh, there's my other seam ripper. Look at that. I got them on Amazon. I have them in 2 different sizes, and I use them constantly. They're not really very expensive, and they're a lifesaver, a time saver, and also you don't tend to prick yourself with them. Now, there are some things, like these masks, where for the cutting out, you're going to need pins. So let's get started on the pinning and cutting process. Why? It's not going anywhere, and it's just a small piece. And then we're going to cut out, let's see, our final piece. Of course, this isn't cooperating. So we're going to not use this piece because it's got a join, and that would just look awkward. So over here, one, two, three, 4, 5. I'm going to use 7 on this one. 6, 7. So like I said, 6 or 7. Alright, I can't believe we've got that all pinned already. It wasn't that fast. So I just do that to keep the fabric from slipping. I grab my scissors. I'm only going to cut out 1 on screen. So just let me check. Alright, so I mean, I'm sure people who know how to sew know how to cut. But we'll just cut 1. And then up here, I mean, there is a proper way to cut, but we're not making a wedding dress here. We are making a face mask that is non-surgical, and mostly we are making them because lately society is more or less demanding that we wear them. So if you want one and it makes you feel safer, this is how to do it. So now we've got this curved bit. Now, to cut properly, you're supposed to always do this and then cut, rather than kind of saw away at it. Alright, that is pretty good. So all I do at this point is I like to get rid of these paper pieces. So what I do is I just take 3 of the pins and I pin the curved edge. Okay? Because we're going to sew along the curved edge for now. And I remove the rest of the pins. And I put this piece of paper back in my pile. So I'm going to do that 7 more times, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're back at the Bernina, and I do apologize for the lighting. I can't have the blinds open. It's blinding. It's about 7 in the morning, maybe 7:30 on Saturday, May 2nd. And yeah, it's great to see the sunshine. However, not great for filming. And I don't have proper studio lights and all that jazz. So what I'm doing right now is a step that is completely optional. I'm embroidering names with my Bernina onto the masks. The reason I'm doing that is because all 4 masks are for the same 2 people, and they are identical fabrics, so I mean, just for hygiene, etc. You want to know who belongs to which mask. So on my Bernina, I hope you can see the screen, I simply do this. I get rid of the previous name because I'm putting different names on them. And on this one, I'm going to put Oma because she's an Oma and she's proud to be an Oma. So O, really? M. This is easier with 2 hands and I'm holding the camera, so come on. Of course. Of course. Behave. Oh my gosh. So embarrassing because I do not know how to edit this out. We just need an A. That's all we need is an A. Lowercase, come on. And there we are. Oma. So we simply do this. And we're ready to start filming that part. Okay. Excuse me. So I've already gone and put interfacing on the, I find interfacing onto the wrong side. This particular interfacing is just your standard iron-on interfacing. There's all sorts of interfacings and stabilizers out on the market. There's wash away, tear away, regular. I'm sure that there's other kinds. This is just some stuff I got from Fabricland. I got a huge quantity of it years ago, and I just keep whittling away. It does tend to be a little bit expensive, and it's probably, you know, not easy to get right now, but if you were going to do this, I would say, you know, order the minimum quantity, whether that's 10 centimeters or 1/4 of a yard, what have you. It'll be plenty for this. I just cut out a little rectangle. All right, so I'm just lining this up, making sure that my presser foot is over the interfacing. I am lining up the edge of the fabric with this line here. I'm just using it as a guide. And down we go. And we just start stitching. And that's that. Cut it. And I don't know about the lighting, if you'll be able to see that, but it says OMA. So I would just cut off any loose threads and then carry on. I'm going to turn the camera off. I have to set this machine up for regular sewing. In order to do this embroidery, I had to do a whole bunch of things. Number 1, switch out the needle, switch out the thread, switch out the bobbin, and you know, all that takes time. So I'm going to change things up and then we'll get to the actual sewing of the masks. Hi there, we're back. Alright, I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things before we get back to sewing. One of those things is I had shown a pair of pinking shears previously. You don't need pinking shears for this project. The only reason I showed them was just to point out that sometimes you can get amazing deals on things you may need for future projects for a great price where you don't expect it. Anyway, pinking shears, you do not need them for this project. You would use them on fabric that tends to fray. When you cut them, it forms little triangles, and therefore the fabric is less likely to fray. I did want to speak a little bit about needles and thread. For this particular project, all you need is your standard universal needle. There's a ton of needles out there, a ton of different brands. I like the Bernina, the Janome, or Schmetz. This is Schmetz. You can get Schmetz really, really easily from eBay. sorry, not eBay, Amazon at the moment, because I know it's not easy to get to Fabricland. There's a ton of different kinds of needles, and there's a whole science between what type of thread you're using with what type of needle. For this project, you're just using a standard needle and you're using standard thread. Now, speaking of thread, my favorite brand of thread is Aurifil. It may seem like it's expensive. This is about $11 or $12. However, it has, I think, 500 meters of thread on it, versus this one, which is Gutermann, and I'm just looking to see, it has 110 yards, and it's about $3. So, if you do the math, for the quality and the quantity, this is your better deal. So Aurifil's my favorite, followed by Mettler. I like Mettler. It's a very good thread. I just prefer the Aurifil, and my machine prefers the Aurifil. Gutermann is what I used for years and years. I like it very much. I can't show on camera, but this little piece actually pops off and you can store needles inside it, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure why you would do that, but it's cool. I also use a brand called Floriani, but mostly for embroidery. It's made in Italy. It's a good thread. Not my favorite, but I do like it. Sulky is also, this particular one is an embroidery thread. It's okay. It's not as good as the Floriani, but it's not bad. The one I really don't like is the one that your mother and your grandmother probably used, which is Coates. Even on my Janome, which was the machine that I was so in love with before I got my Bernina, I just found it's a bit ropey. It's not as smooth, and it would tend to cause filament to build up by the needle, thread breakage, thread nests, all the things. However, if that's what you like, then go ahead and use it. I will be back in a minute and we'll start sewing. Okay, I'm ready to start sewing. When I sew these, I like to start from the curved end versus the pointed end. So the curved end, I just find it's easier because we do have to do a bit of pivoting down here, and I prefer to do that at the end. This project has a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and most machines have a grid here that you can follow, or in this particular case, as long as I have my needle in the center position, versus toggling it back and forth. The distance from the needle to the edge of the foot is 3/8 of an inch, so that's kind of handy. I think the people that maybe design these machines actually know what they're doing. So I'm just lining that up. Now this particular machine does a back stitch at the beginning of the stitching, so I don't need to back stitch. However, I will need to back stitch when I get to the other end, because I'm sure I could set this up and press a button and it would do it for me, but I haven't figured that part out. I haven't had this machine for that long. Okay, so let's begin. And that was the famous Bernina burp. So I'm just following along. I'm going slowly so that you can see. And of course that thread wants to catch, and we will just haul it out. Okay. Now this machine has a lovely feature called hover. You see how the presser foot went up a little bit? That's beautiful for pivoting, which we'll be doing when we finish these masks. Okay. Now don't sew over pins, so when you're getting close to a pin, remove the pin, put it aside. I'm trying to sew slowly, but I'm so used to sewing that it's difficult for me. Okay, so we're getting to the part where we have to pivot a little bit. So if you don't have my type of machine, make sure your needle's down, raise your presser foot, and pivot a little bit. And we need to pivot again. Just always make sure your needle's down, otherwise your fabric will slide. Okay, so, and now we're going to backstitch, or so I thought. So, now I'll have a big thread knot there, but that's okay. And we're going to cut. Okay, I'm going to worry about that thread knot later. Let's do a few more, and I'll do one more slowly and one quickly. So I'm lining this up with the edge of my presser foot. My needle is in the center position. This machine automatically backstitches. I am starting at the curved end versus the pointed end. Oops, and that wasn't very smart. Let's see if we're still, okay, we're still in frame. It's really difficult for me to sew with this camera on my sewing table, but I'll make the best of it. I don't have a fancy camera or a fancy setup, so I'm going to just adjust it ever so slightly. You don't have to pivot this much, I'm just being fussy. We are approaching a pin, so let's remove it. Let's remove this one. And it is time to pivot. You're just pivoting so that the edge of your presser foot is still aligned with the edge of your fabric. Okay? Time to pivot again. As you can see, presser foot fabric lined up. Let's not try to sew over this time. One more stitch and then hold this firmly. And cut it. Alright, I'm going to do one quickly so that you can see how quickly these come together once you get the hang of where to start, where to stop, where to pivot. I love this knee lift, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, here we go. And maybe one more, and then I'll turn the camera off because we're going to need to iron these seams flat, which I know most people don't like ironing. And when I first started sewing, I'm like, oh, I don't need to iron that. Why would I want to iron the seam flat? It seems so time consuming. I'm going to burn myself, all the things. But at the end of the day, it does produce a superior product. It really, really, truly does. And it's not really that time consuming. Actually, when I started quilting, I grew to love ironing. I just really like the process. I found it relaxing. It ceased to be irritating. Alright, finish this off. Turn the camera off for now. Alright. Hi again. Okay, so we need to iron some seams open. As you can see, this is what our piece looks like. However, these seams on the inside need to be opened up like so. In order to do that, I'm very grateful to my daughter who purchased this for me. It's called a Tailor's ham. You can get them easily on Amazon. I don't call it a Tailor's ham, I call it my Hammy. I love it. It is so, so, so handy, particularly for these masks. Not everybody has a tailor's ham, and not everybody wants to spend 20 bucks on a tailor's ham so they can make a mask. A couple other things you can do are roll up a blanket, roll up a towel. You can certainly do it on a roll of paper towels. It's a little more cumbersome. It doesn't have the firmness that this does. This is very stiff, and it makes it a lot easier. Or, before I got Hammy, what I did was I had this rather ancient, I don't know if it's in frame, rather ancient Laura Ashley neck roll. And what I did was I took off the outer piece, and I just used the inner piece, the naked pillow, because it's a cylinder shape, to do the ironing. Now, that being said, it's very squishy versus the Hammy is very firm. So I found I couldn't get gription. One thing that did help was, I'm just going to put this over here, was actually pinning it on to just give it that extra bit of firmness. Now, I think I need to move back just a weeny bit. Yeah. Okay, so to iron on the Hammy, you simply dress the Hammy with your mask piece. Alright, now if you want, I'm just going to show you what I meant by pinning it on, so you can pin it on the paper towels or the neck roll, you know, just like that. Maybe 2 or 3 pins, just to give it a little bit of stability. Now, I don't normally bother, so I'm taking those back out. It's still a little bit of a pain, even with the Hammy, but trust me, it's better than not doing it. Again, I'm using my little pink iron. She was a gift to me. Now, this mat, this gray mat is a felted wool mat, and it just gives you crisper seams. I get that I'm not ironing on it at this moment, but it also makes it so I can just put this down here and not have to put it back in its little tray. Ouch, which is hot. Okay, so I'm only going to show 2 of these versus all 8. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do the very best you can. Again, having a little crafting iron like this for small things like this makes it so much easier. And I'm just flattening that out. And that's what it looks like once it's been ironed. Okay. If you absolutely don't want to iron, I mean, at least try to manually manipulate the seam so that it's flat. I mean, that can be done. I prefer to iron. Anyway, I'm going to do one more. So we dress the Hammy, open it up a little bit. Actually, that finger method, it's called finger pressing. Wasn't too horrible. Okay, turn it around. You just have to manipulate the fabric over the ham a little bit. Everything that you iron on the ham is going to be done slightly differently. This is a great tool for any curved seams. I'm assuming if you were actually making a dress shirt and it had collar and cuffs, that it would be great for ironing around the cuff or the collar, any curved seams. So again, that's what it looks like. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. You just want it ironed open. All right, I'll iron the other 6 and catch you in a bit. Good morning, Track Pant Nation. I heard Jim Richards on our local radio station, CFRB, say that the other day, and I thought it was funny. And so I'm wearing track pants. It is Wednesday, May 6, 2020. Apparently, Premier Ford is maybe going to loosen some of the restrictions. We'll see what happens. So I realized when I was reviewing footage and trying to splice everything together that parts that I had thought I had recorded, in fact I hadn't, and parts that when I thought I was not recording, I was. However, one thing I did figure out is how to adjust the recording volume on this thing. If you're interested in this camera, haha, while I was searching to see if I could get an external mic, I did find several of them on eBay for the astounding price of between $35 and $70 US. So that tells you how old and decrepit this particular camera is. Anyway, one of the parts that we missed was how to pin the front and the back of the mask together. So I've got my 2 pieces here, my 4 straps, and my handy clips from Amazon. And all I am doing is, the first thing I'm going to do is the top piece that goes at the bridge of the nose. I am lining up those seams, right sides together, and placing a clip right there. Okay. I take the 2 sides, the corners, the top corners, I line them up, put a clip there. Oops. I'm just clawing at the fabric a bit to get it in alignment. Do the same thing on the other side. The corner first, just to kind of anchor it. Claw at this a bit, with your nails, to bring it into alignment. Okay, I open it up like so. I take 1 strap and place it here. Now the interesting thing about these clips is the distance from here to here appears to be 3/8 of an inch. So that makes it kind of handy for your seam allowance. Okay, so I am just simply butting it up against the bottom edge of that clip, placing the fabric down, clipping it into place. This one here, you just kind of have to eyeball it. Okay, that looks about right. Line up your fabric. Clip it into place. And I like to put 1 clip here in the middle. Turn it around. Tuck these in. Repeat the process on the other side. So line it up, butt it up against the bottom of that clip. Clip it in place. Get your 4th tie. Line it up about 3/8 of an inch. I mean, I have a ruler here along the bottom edge, which I could use, but I'm not going to, because I'm eyeballing it. Okay, clip it here. Clip it here for stability when you're sewing. Put all of the ties inside. Give it a little shake. Line up the bottom corners. I'm going to use 4 more clips. 1 here, 1 here, a clip here, and a clip here. I'm deliberately leaving an opening about this big. Could be a little smaller. About that big. Right here. And the reason for that is so that we can turn it right side out. I'm going to start sewing in a minute, so let's get set up for that. I'm not going to lie, it's really hard to set this camera up properly. Okay, so we're ready to sew this down. We have got our needle set at the center position, which is the standard default needle position. We're using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. On most machines, if your needle is at the center position and you line the edge of your fabric up with the edge of your foot, you should have 3/8 of an inch. So I'm lowering my presser foot. Now this particular machine has a knee lift, so I'm using my knee to put the presser foot up and down. It also has a hover feature, which you will see when I stop sewing, because I'm going to pivot at various points. It automatically lifts the foot with the needle in the needle down position, so it's easy for me to pivot my fabric. Okay, let's begin. So it automatically does a lock stitch at the beginning of every row of stitching. Okay. And that's not very good sewing technique. I should have clipped that thread. Anyway, we'll just do that. We're getting ready to pivot. So when you pivot, if your foot lines up again, you're in about the right spot. If you don't have a machine like this, and I get that a lot of people don't, please remember to always have your needle in the needle down position before you lift the presser foot and pivot. Otherwise your fabric is not going to be anchored. And I'm using that purple Thang. It's a Thang, not a Thing, to just kind of keep my tie anchored. And I'm going to be back stitching over the tie. So just use your finger to kind of feel where it starts and ends. Back stitch and forward stitch. Just be a little bit careful to not sew over the ties that are tucked inside this little sandwich. So I'm trying to sew slowly, but because I sew so much and so often, it's hard for me to sew slowly. Okay, coming up to another tie. I can feel it with my fingers. And back stitch. And forward stitch, and we'll get ready to pivot. Should be about right, and yes it is. Okay, now this particular edge from here to here is the most challenging part to sew. You want to make sure your fabric's in alignment, and you don't want to sew over these ties, so just be aware of that. Coming up to the part that goes on the bridge of the nose, and that indeed is a spot where you have to pivot. Now this edge is curved, so just keep the edge of your presser foot in line with your fabric and you should be fine. Okay, so we're coming up to this bit and we want to make sure that it doesn't buckle. So I'm pulling it from underneath just to make sure, and I'm checking to make sure that my seam allowances are all where they need to be. And I use the edge of this. It's almost like a little pancake lifter to keep the fabric in place while I'm stitching. And one more stitch and we're ready to pivot. For whatever reason, it's much easier to sew along this edge than it was on the previous bit. Okay. Ready to pivot again. Okay, that's good enough. I'm going to back stitch again over this tie. And Sorry, I know when I do this, I probably block the camera. Using my finger to feel where the tie ends. Back stitching. Forward stitching. Pivot. Oh, that's good. Okay, claw this a little bit underneath. Wow, too late. Okay, we're going to sew to about here, back stitch a bit, back stitch, forward stitch, cut. Okay, a few things. Let's cut off any excess threads. You can, we call these dog ears. You can trim them, and I didn't do a very good job of that. You can trim off the dog ears. Now we do have to cut a diagonal line here at the corner, and that is so that when we turn it out we reduce bulk here. And on the top ones, not so much the bottom, but the top ones, I like to also do this. Slim out the corners a bit. I'm sure there's a more technical term for it. I have no idea. Same. Just be careful you don't cut too close to the stitching, otherwise when you go to poke out your corners you go right through the fabric. So slim this out a bit. Slim this out a bit. These ones at the bottom, just cut. It should be fine. Again, not too close. The lighting could be better. Okay. Now the other thing I do is I open up these seams and I cut the excess tie because it just reduces bulk. That one's already cut quite close, but we'll trim it a little more. Same with that one. Trim it a wee bit more. This one's got a good amount to be trimmed off. Okay, so that is all the trimming. Okay. Now, using this opening that we left, turn your mask right side out. It helps to use the strings, the ties, to just... Then what I like to do is use this end of that purple thing to poke out the corners, just to make sure they're nice. 2, 3, 4. Okay, not too shabby. And then what I like to do is I like to roll this top edge into alignment. Just so when we're going to do our top stitching, which is going to secure the mask, make it look nicer, and it's also going to close up this edge, this opening, we're not going to have so much slippage. So, you know, you can put your hand inside, you can stick your finger in, just kind of roll it and play with it a bit until it submits. Before we do our top stitching, which is the final step, I'm opening up this opening and I am going to fold it in a little bit. Make sure your seam allowances are in the right position. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And line those up. If you quilt at all, you'll be good at this. Now I'm just going to put a clip there in the center, and I'm just going to pull on this until they cooperate. Okay. So as I get each piece aligned, I clip it. I'm not fond of that. Okay, that's better. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that's what it should look like. Now, I already filmed the part where I sewed around the outside edge, so for now, this is it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to switch out the thread to a purple thread that I have because I already have the thread. Most importantly, I already have a bobbin wound, and I don't like, I don't hate winding bobbins. What I don't like is the bobbins for this Bernina are quite expensive, and I don't want to use one for a different color. So this has purple in it. We're going to top stitch around the edges, which will reinforce the straps, make it look pretty, and close up this opening. Thank you. Alright, this is the final step, and I just realized that in the previous segment, I probably didn't have the camera close enough, so maybe that was just a complete and utter waste of time. Anyway, against what I just finished saying about Coats thread, I am using Coats thread number 1 because I decided that because I have a purple bobbin already wound, it would just make sense, and I can only find my Coats purple thread at the moment. Alright, I'm going to start about here. We're doing top stitching. So what I want to do is move my needle over. That's as far as it will go. We just literally want to top stitch. We just want to catch the edge. This does two things. It reinforces the garment. It's going to reinforce the ties. It will, this is really long. It will close up this gap where we turned this right side out, and it will also just make it look nicer. So this is called top stitching. You know what? You can get a top stitch needle. There are needles called top stitch needles. There's thread for top stitching. I'm just using what I've got. Alright, this is the final step. So we're just going to start stitching. Now that being said, normally I would do all my clipping, all my sewing, and all my turning. I do it like assembly line style, but just to get this done, we're doing it this way. Yeah, you should always clip your threads. Again, this top edge is a bit tricky. It's the most annoying part. Okay, so I think if we pivot, so again, I'm just kind of going from underneath, smoothing it out. So that it's nice. And as I said, this little nose bridge piece is the most annoying part. You just have to pull from the top and from the bottom and get it the best you can. And when the needle pierces the center seam, it's time to pivot. Your ties out of the way. Pull it taut, not too taut, but you know, enough that puts everything into alignment. And it's time to pivot. You can actually use the straps to pull your fabric a bit to make it nice. I think this girl wants a new needle. I can kind of tell by the sound she's making. Okay. stretch, kids. Okay. So we've got one more seam here where we're going to pivot ever so slightly. And if you're worried about this coming unfolded, just use your Tupperware orange peeler, a knitting needle, whatever you've got. Okay, now we're over the hump. Uh-oh, what's going on here? Okay. You know what? We are going to cut that. We're going to see what's going on. It's just being a brat. Okay. Nothing major. Let's line that up. I'm actually kind of glad this happened because, you know, people watch tutorials and they think everything is just fine and dandy. It's not always the case. So I'm lining that up with my previous stitching. Okay, and down you go. Now at this final corner you want to be a little bit careful because you want to make sure that your stitching meets up. And I think this is going to be fine. I'm actually clipping that so it doesn't become a nasty mess. Get this out of the way. And I don't need to backstitch. You can if you want, but I've already got this stitching here and I'm just going to probably go up to about here so that more or less replicates backstitching. Okay, and we cut. Okay, so, oh, this is looking a little bit hairy. It needs a haircut. Okay. So this is our final product. This is a woman's medium. And you know, you can futz about clipping all your little stray threads till your heart's content. You could press this. You could absolutely give this a final press. Okay, so as you can see, this part goes up on the bridge of your nose. This ties, you know, kind of like the chin area, goes on the chin area. It is reversible. It is machine washable in hot and dry in hot. You can see this one says Oma on it. On one side, it's subtle. I mean, people may want, you know, their name in big, bold block letters. I actually have an embroidery unit for this machine. There it is. However, I think that, you know, this, or it says Oma, I hope that that's visible. You know, maybe you don't want your name, everybody in public knowing your name. So that's what it looks like from start to finish. I may have to refilm parts of this, but hopefully everybody enjoyed the tutorial. Let me know your thoughts. I get that my videography, I can't even say it, skills are probably very, very subpar. I'm working with an old camera and this is the first time I've done this. Clip. But yeah, that's how you do it. I know it seems like a lot of work. I'm starting and stopping and I'm going slow. If you have any sewing skills at all, you can probably go a little more quickly than I did on camera. If you're new to sewing, then just take your time. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye.